Good afternoon. This is another installment of DeVoe Speaks. And sorry it's been so long a delay. I've gotten your calls and your emails and people saying, where is it? I promised one every 2 weeks. Well, here's the next one, and I'll try to get at least 2 more in before school starts. Congratulations once again to our past graduating seniors, but it's time to move on. They're going to college, and let's get ready for our next group, our seniors of the class of 2009. Today's talk is titled Rats in a Cage. You know, those who were in my class this past year, I was very disappointed when we had a conversation when apparently the black and the brown people were at odds with each other, which was very confusing to me. It seemed that English-speaking blacks born in America were having some kind of contention with our Spanish-speaking, brothers born in the Caribbean. The term divide and conquer, it may sound cliche, but I assure you it's extremely effective. I think I heard somebody give the Romans credit for divide and conquer, but clearly the strategy of dividing and conquering a group of people is much older than the Romans, and it's old since the beginning of warfare, and it's used very much today. Matter of fact, I asked my friends I grew up with when we used to play Risk and Axis and Allies. I used divide and conquer then. It's very effective. You just get your enemies fighting each other, and then once they're weakened, you could just come in and defeat both of them. Very easy strategy. And so when I hear oppressed black people here in America fighting oppressed brown people here in America, I can only imagine that the enemies of both these people are just smiling at how effectively their divide and conquering has happened. Let's be clear on a couple of things. Most blacks here in America, we've got here through slavery. I think that's pretty accurate. And we speak English because the 13 colonies were colonized by the English. Hey, how you doing today? And let's be clear on our Spanish-speaking brothers. You speak Spanish because you were colonized by the Spanish. Most of you don't know how to claim any kinship to Spain. You claim Puerto Rico, you claim Dominican Republic, which you should, and I don't have anything wrong with nationalism, but you hold on to Spanish speaking like that was the native language of your people in those places. And we know that that was not the native language of the indigenous people of America. So one group being colonized by the English, so speak English, wants to fight another group that was colonized by the Spanish, and so they speak Spanish. Doesn't make a lot of sense at all. How you doing, Puddin'? Got a lot of interruption in DeVoe Speaks today. But this is the rats in the cage philosophy. Those who take the subway, you've probably seen rats often, as I do. And most rats don't have any problem with each other. They travel in groups and packs, and as long as food is plentiful, rats are pretty nice to each other. They can all eat off the same food that people throw down on the tracks, and their life is good. But I remember, I think I may have been in college at Hampton University. I remember they used to do a lot of studies with animals and humans back in the days. They've outlawed a lot of it. But if you put 2 rats in a cage and you starve them and you shake the cage up and you put them under stress, you know it's not too long before the rats will eat each other. Rats with no food, rats who are stressed or in oppressed conditions will definitely eat each other because they just don't have the means to attack their captors. So all they do is fight the only thing that's in front of them. I got news for you, my black scholars and my brown scholars. If you're fighting each other for who speaks a different language or where they come from, you're nothing more than rats in a cage. We're both oppressed people, both been oppressed by Europeans through colonization. You have no means, at least you don't know now, how to attack your captors. If you stay in school and read, maybe you can learn. But because you don't know how to attack your captors, you just bite the other rats in the cage. It doesn't make any sense. I'm so glad of our past graduating class of seniors we didn't have that problem. And I know the problem was started in other well, not started all overall, but in our building, it happened in other schools. You had these black and brown people fighting, and I just didn't want that to come up in the UOC. You know, we're better than that. We know we have a shared history, and you need to learn that shared history so you don't act so foolish. You know, it's really, it's when you learn more in college and read more and you understand your history, you're going to feel the pain and distress in your heart that Mr. DeVoe feels. I mean, to know that captured Africans would come here, be forced not to speak their language but speak the language of their oppressor and speak English, and then when our brothers hundreds of years later, our West African brothers, who are probably from very similar nations and countries to how ancestors are taken from, but I'm going to tease them because they don't speak English as well as I have, because I've been in this country longer. Insane. When I hear people thinking that their race is Spanish, which is just a language, and so they're grouping together because they've been colonized by the Spanish people. And I got news for you. You know, check it out for yourself when you visit Spain. You know, Spaniards from Spain don't claim a lot of kinship to their conquered people in the Caribbean. I hate to break it to you, all my Dominican brothers and Puerto Rican brothers here, but there's a reason why they call y'all Hispanic and they call the actual people from Europe Spanish. Alright, so don't claim too much on it. Not trying to knock you. And hey, Mr. DeVoe, I'm all for nationality and people being proud of where they're from. But put it in perspective. You know, learn who were the people, the indigenous people that lived on the island of Dominican Republic before the Europeans arrived. What were the name of the tribes and the nations that lived on the island that we call Puerto Rico before Europeans arrived? Did they speak Spanish? No. So if you're going to fight and go crazy over speaking a language that you only speak because you were conquered by the conquistadors in Spain, come on, we got to be better than that. And help your brethren, your other brothers not from UOC, be better than that. You know, let me give you a couple of books and we'll wrap this up today. There's a book called They Came Before Columbus. So write that down. They Came Before Columbus. I believe the author is Ivan Van Sertima. That's Ivan Van Sertima. And they talk about African presence here in the Americas before, you know, slavery and colonization. You know, we had a relationship, you know, the people from Africa to the people here in the Americas before Europeans came along. And it was a very positive, healthy relationship on trade and exploration. Read Lerone Bennett. Write that down. Lerone Bennett Jr. Before the Mayflower. So write that book down, Before the Mayflower. It's a heavy book. Maybe you just want to peek at it or read the back of it, read some excerpts online. But it once again talks about Africans traveling into the Americas way before Columbus, way before European colonization. You know, our history started way before slavery and colonization. And you need to get back to that so you're not just behaving as slaves, as conquered people, as people who've been divided and conquered, as rats in a cage. You know, I've been reading this book to my daughter, African Beginnings. It's a children's book, and but sure, you can pick it up and I've learned a lot from it. But probably the best thing for you guys is they give a little timeline in the back here. You probably can't see it. Milestones in African history. And it talks about all of these things in African history. And I'm sure this is very true in the Americas. If you can learn about the Aztecs or the Mayans or the Incas or the Taínos or the Cherokee, or we know this history. There's history way before slavery. And way down here, they talk about the European slave trade, right about the 1500s. And so you had all these empires, all this history, and this slave trade that we're under, it's only been a very short time of your history that you're acting under. And so when you're acting like slaves, when you're acting like rats in a cage, you're really disrespecting your ancestors who expect so much more of you. You know, let's end it like this. Language doesn't make you what you are. You know, it's certainly a part of your culture, and hey, I speak English, but as I speak English, I'm no fool. I know that's not the indigenous language of my people. And so I'm not going to fight anybody if they don't speak English, because the only reason why I speak English is because my ancestors were enslaved and conquered here. So if you speak English, if you speak Spanish, it's the language you speak. But don't be a fool and fight somebody because they speak a different language, because you only speak your language because you were conquered. So we're going to end that on DeVoe Speaks. We're not going to have any more problems between the Black and Brown